Everyone, today I will be walking through our vendor registration process, which conveniently allows vendors to self-register via the vendor portal and captures all vendor updates in NetSuite. I will show you how to submit the vendor request, what happens when the request is initiated, the details captured on the vendor portal, and how the portal updates the vendor in NetSuite. So first, in Employee Center, I'm able to see the vendor request form from my dashboard. Once I click on that link, I'm brought to the request task where I'm able to enter the title or the vendor name, the email to send the vendor registration form to, and any comments to vendor necessary for registration purposes. Under the message tab, I'm able to enter an internal message for the team who will be reviewing this request. So once I'm ready, I can click save. The status has not yet started, and there is no further action on my part. If I navigate back to my dashboard, I will be able to see this newly requested task under my tasks portlet. Switching gears, I will go into my AP role, where I will be able to review the vendor request and initiate the task. You'll see under my reminders, I have the vendor request queue. I can navigate to my recently requested vendor, make sure the details here look correct, and I have two options. Either I can initiate the request, which will send the vendor registration form directly to the vendor, or I can enter a rejection reason and reject the request, asking the Employee Center user to update information. I will go ahead and initiate. And once the task is initiated, the status will update to completed, and the vendor will receive the registration form straight to their email. Here is what the vendor registration email will look like, asking the vendor to self-register as a vendor and to use the temporary password to log in for the first time. This will bring the vendor to the sign-in page where they will be able to enter the temporary password, their email, continue. The vendor's first time logging into the vendor portal, it will prompt them to enter a new password. Once the password criteria is verified, it will bring the vendor to the first page of the registration. So here you see any of the fields that have an asterisk are going to be mandatory fields. There's an attachment here for the vendor to upload documents such as W-9 or bank details. And below we have the address information that the vendor will be prompted to enter. Once I hit next, the next page is where the vendor will enter their bank details. The routing number is verified by the system, so it will not allow the user to move forward if the routing number is incorrect. We have the SWIFT code, the account type, and the account number. Once I've verified all of this information looks correct, I'm able to go to the next page. And here we have HCP and HCO information. This page is optional in the vendor portal. And finally, I'm able to review my details are all correct, certify that all information entered is accurate, and click Finish. Once the vendor has completed the vendor registration form, all of the details that the vendor entered will be populated on the vendor record in NetSuite. So in NetSuite, I'm able to verify that the details submitted by the vendor via the portal look correct. You'll see the address auto-populates here. The form status is updated to completed, and I'm able to submit this vendor for approval. Submitting for approval will put the vendor through our internal approval process. And you'll see I'm able to also see a couple options at the top of this vendor record. The Request Vendor Changes button, if I click this, this will send out an email to the vendor asking them to log into the portal, verify that all of their details are correct and the information is up to date. And once they submit, it will populate the details on their vendor record. I also see the Reset Vendor Portal Access button. Just in case the vendor forgets their password or is unable to log in, I can click this button, which will send the vendor an email with a temporary password and a login link. Thank you so much for your time today. We look forward to seeing how this solution can help your business.